supposed to be our enemies. And I kept thinking, but they're just people. And I wondered about the similarities because the differences were being shown to us on television. But I kept thinking, but they're just people. They've got to have things in common with me, with us.
Okay.
And so that's how I initially got interested in psychology, just for my interest and love of people.
Okay, so where did you first start your studies?
I did my baccalaureate degree at Ouachita Baptist University in Arkadelphia.
Okay.
I then moved on to Emporia State University in Emporia, Kansas, where I did a Master's of Science degree.
Okay.
And then I went to Wichita State University in Wichita, Kansas,
Okay.
where I did a PhD in human factors psychology.
And so what brought you to Jonesboro? How did you make that transition from Kansas to Jonesboro?
Well, actually, I had returned from Kansas and I was actually teaching at Ouachita Baptist University, which was my alma mater.
Okay.
So one of my former professors had brought me back to actually teach and work there, and I did that for 4 years.
Okay.
I was then encouraged to apply to a position that was open at Arkansas State University, and it was department chair for the Department of Psychology and Counseling. So I was actually hired to do that position in 2005.
Wow.
And I served as department chair for 8 years.
Okay, that is wonderful. And so in this field, like I asked Dr. Lily Fears earlier, in this field of psychology and counseling, one, had it been male dominated, and two, what was the minority percentage like?
Okay. The proportion of male to female in our field has actually changed over probably the past 25 years.
Okay.
In that we are now predominantly female.
That's wonderful.
So
Want to say one for you?
at least more than 50% probably of the people who are receiving doctorate degrees and students who are studying at the undergraduate and graduate level are female. The numbers for persons of color is actually much lower.
Okay.
When I was, when I was going through my master's program and my PhD, I was the only person of African American descent. There were two of us who were persons of color. She was originally from Malaysia, and we became really good friends, of course. But the number of African Americans in this field is much smaller. I don't know the exact proportion.
Loretta, you're tuned into Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, and we're speaking with Dr. Loretta McGregor from Arkansas State University. She's a professor of psychology and counseling, and this is the College of Education and, I'm sorry, I didn't catch
Behavioral science.
Behavior science. Okay. And so let's talk about some of the achievements you've made since you've been in Arkansas State. You said you've been here 12 years.
Yes, I have been here 12 years.
And so I was trying to pull up your profile on the Arkansas State's webpage, but it listed as if it's a resume. Like there's this, it's kind of technical. So I would like for you to tell some of the things that you've done, any books, articles, any committees you may serve on, or any other community service that you are involved in.
Okay.
I know I threw a lot at you.
12 years is a long time.
Well, just, maybe the past. We don't want you to try to go too far back. We don't want to. I don't want to put any pressure on you.
I understand. I am a active member of the American Psychological Association.
Okay.
And the American Psychological Association, which is also abbreviated simply as APA, is the largest international and national organization of psychologists in the United States, but also in the world. The American Psychological Association is really designed to help provide information and to disseminate information about psychology to the public. And it really tries to teach people about what psychology really is, as opposed to what people tend to see on television.
Okay, maybe you can help us understand that. Please.
Well, I will try, definitely. So I have served with APA for a number of years, but now I have started serving in a little more of a, I guess, administrative capacity with them, in that I serve on one of their board of directors.
Okay.
So their Board of Educational Affairs, I am actually a board member on that.
Okay.
And what we do is we look at education and how our students are trained in psychology, and we try to find better ways to educate them both from K through 12 as well as in university and in graduate school.
Okay. Now help us understand, we hear the term psychology and then psychiatry. So try to help us understand the difference.
Okay.
And maybe are there any similarities?
Okay. The biggest difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist, number one, is that psychologists are scientists. We are initially trained as scientists.
Okay.
That is our primary training at the baccalaureate or the undergraduate level. For a psychiatrist, they may be trained in psychology at the undergraduate level, but they may also be trained in the biological sciences or chemistry or something along those lines.
Okay.
Psychiatrists then go on to medical school.
Okay.
So psychiatrists actually have a medical degree. They have an MD.
Okay.
And for a psychologist, we go to graduate school in psychology. We actually have a lot of different paths we can take. Some of us go on to become what we call service providers, and the most popular type of service provider is that they become a clinician or a counselor.
Okay.
With other psychologists, they go into research-related fields, which is the type of field that I have chosen to go into.
Okay. And what are some research projects that you have been involved in?
I think one of my favorite research projects that I have been involved in was researching a African American psychologist who was born and reared in Arkansas.
Okay.
That a lot of people don't know that about her. Her name is Dr. Mamie Phipps Clark. And Dr. Clark and her husband were actually instrumental in providing research for the Board of Education case that helped desegregate schools. What Dr. Clark did is, as part of her graduate studies, she did research with children, and she showed the negative effects of desegregation on children. She did what's called the famous doll study, and the doll study was where she and her husband took little children, both African American and Caucasian children, and they showed them individually two dolls. One doll was African American, one doll was Caucasian, and they asked the children questions about the dolls. And some of the questions had positive connotations and other questions had negative connotations, and they asked them which doll, did that apply to. So for instance, they would say, which doll is ugly? And they would have the children point to the doll.
Okay.
Wow. Dr. Mamie Phipps Clark was actually born in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And she graduated from Hot Springs High School, or from the high school there, I think it was Langston High School, at the age of 16, and moved to Washington, D.C. so that she could go to school at Howard University. And it was at Howard University where she both met her husband and she became interested in psychology.
Okay.
The fascinating thing I think about her is that she was trying to become a psychologist and do meaningful work in a period when, number one, it was very difficult for African Americans to make it in that field, and on top of that, it was difficult because she was a female.
And what year was it? Like, what time frame was this?
This was in the 1950s, 1960s. So, with her research that was actually used, she had met Thurgood Marshall early on, so he knew of her work and the studies, and she was asked if they could use her research in the case. And it was the very first time that research along that line, social science research of any kind, and definitely psychological research had been used in a court case.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that is very interesting. A little bit more information on during this Women's History Month, and that is what we're celebrating today. That's why I asked Dr. McGregor. I sent the message out for several women in the community and on the college campus to come and do an interview, because I love to highlight women that are making strides, women that are making a positive impact in the community in which they live, and inspiring the students that they teach. So I know that your students are very grateful to have you as a professor, because I'm sure you open their mind up beyond what the book says.
I try.
We need more professors and teachers. I wish at the high school and junior high level that they can do that as well. Unfortunately, they are held to stricter guidelines, so they have to kind of stay on the straight and narrow when it comes to that.
That is true, but really good teachers find a way to actually touch the minds of their students, and I have lots of friends who teach in the secondary education, where they're teaching high school and they're teaching junior high, and given the restrictions that they have, they do a phenomenal job.
Okay.
Because it was my high school teachers who encouraged me that I could go ahead and go to college and do anything that I wanted to do, because I was a child from an impoverished background.
Okay.
And these people not only nurtured my mind in school, but they also nurtured my spirit.
Okay.
And encouraged me to go on.
We had a similar conversation yesterday with Dr. Jody Long from the social work department concerning what you give your children in those early years really helps to shape and mold them later on in life. So that is really wonderful that you have people in your life that help you to see that just because you're at this level, you don't have to stay at this level. You can rise above and be more than what society says.
Very true. And I also have to admit that I had a very supportive family.
Okay.
We did not have a lot financially, but we had a lot of love and we had a lot of encouragement, and we definitely had the grace of God. So
that's wonderful. If you have any questions or comments for Dr. McGregor, please give us a call at 870-277-1080. We're also streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, so be sure to drop your questions or comments there. If you don't get them in before the show is over, we'll make sure to get them to Dr. McGregor. And if you have any questions of Dr. Fears, who was here in the first part, we'll make sure to get any questions or comments to her as well. Okay, so what is some advice you may give to someone that is going into this field? It takes a lot of, I'm sure it takes a lot of research, a lot of study. You have to be dedicated because you're going to be faced with some issues that might challenge you. Like I'm studying conflict resolution, and I'm like, I just had to bow my head in some of those, some of the terminology. Like, oh my God, I am so passive when it comes to conflict. Like, I'm the peace and harmony, hands off. I don't want to deal with it, but I can't be like that all my life. So give us some advice. Whoever is interested in going into the psychology or counseling field.
Okay. If there is a student who is interested in pursuing psychology for the first time at the undergraduate level, the first thing I would say is that be prepared for the amount of science and math that is going to be involved in it. Psychology is considered a STEM field, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, because we do a lot of scientific training. Our students have to take research methodology courses, they have to take statistics, they have to take college algebra. So there is a lot of terminology that's related to biology and math in our discipline, and a lot of students are surprised by that because they want to come in and they think that they're going to learn how to counsel people in their first 4 weeks of classes.
No.
And so we have to try to educate them about what it takes to become a counselor. So you cannot become a counselor by completing 4 years of university.
Okay.
You must complete a baccalaureate degree, a 4-year degree, and then a counselor is required to complete, at the very least, a master's degree.
Okay.
So at least 2 additional years in a program.
Oh wow. So do you work since this field, the field of professional psychology, since it's in the STEM field, do you work closely with the College of Math and Science?
I do not personally work
Okay.
closely with math and science, but I do have colleagues who work with the math and science department.
Okay.
And what they have done over the years is that they have put together workshops and summer camps to actually bring high school teachers in to teach them about doing science in the classroom.
Okay.
And then they have brought students in. So the person in our department who did this was Dr. Karen Yanowitz.
Okay.
She worked with, she had a national grant that allowed her to do research, training people to do STEM education in high schools.
Okay. I read an article concerning girls in the STEM program. A big part of the retention issue or lack of retention for girls is that they don't have the influence. They're not, how can I say, they don't have the motivation. They're not motivated by, say, peers or family or schools. There's not that there's a lack of encouragement, not motivation. Lack of encouragement to let them know you are smart enough, you can do math and science. Just because you may not make the best grades in these subjects, you can still excel in these subjects and go forward in the computer science field. In the research, there was a lot of schools that don't even offer computer science related classes. There's only 9 states out of the whole 51, sorry, that make it a requirement. The other ones are kind of like, it's up to their discretion. I feel that if more high schools or even junior high schools offered the classes not as an elective but as part of the regular curriculum, you need to take at least 1 or 2 before you graduate, not if you want to take it. Maybe there may be more interest in the field. I don't know. Maybe you can help me. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I think that sometimes we as adults forget, and excuse me, and especially those of us who are female adults, sometimes we forget how difficult it is to be a teenage girl. There is a lot going on, not only in our minds, but in our body with hormonal changes and all of these kinds of things, and trying to get used to them and become accustomed to them. And then we also have schools and peer pressures and all of those kinds of things that are going on. So the lack of motivation may be, and I don't know this for a fact, but the lack of motivation may be due to a lack of ability to focus at that particular time. When students are being asked to learn particular concepts and techniques, maybe they're just not able to do that at that moment. So, maybe it's taking a look at our girls and doing things to encourage them in different ways, and that may even be outside of the classroom. I like to try to get...
I'm sorry, if we can hold that thought until we come back. I don't want you to run out of time. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll let Dr. McGregor finish her statement. We were speaking with Dr. Loretta McGregor from Arkansas State University. She's a professor of psychology and counseling in the College of Education and Behavioral Sciences. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be right back after these short announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., desperate to get out of debt Debt settlement might seem like an easy way out, but there are many risks involved. If you're considering hiring a debt settlement company, here are some key questions you need to ask. Can you stop my creditors from calling me? It is not possible to stop all creditor calls. Will you be making monthly payments to my creditors? Legitimate settlement companies do not make monthly payments to your creditors. Can I get sued? Yes, there is a possibility that you could get sued by your creditors. Don't believe it if the settlement company acts like it can't happen to you or if they guarantee that they can prevent it. I'm out of time, but check for Money Matters tomorrow for more questions you should ask before hiring a debt settlement company. For more information or for past shows, go to aurn.com. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uncompromising commitment to communities, service, leadership, empowerment. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. 5 locations in Jonesboro to serve you. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Starks Auto Plaza, your pre-owned superstore, is a longtime supporter of KLEK, 2829 Red Wolf Boulevard. Starks offers clean, reliable vehicles of all makes and models. Starks also offers no-hassle pricing, friendly service, financing options with approved credit. At Starks, you're always family, and our motto is, we never say no. 870-203-9980. StarksAutoPlaza.com.
Celebrating Women's History Month on KLEK 102.5 FM. Here's your Women's History Moment with Dr. Sharice Jones Branch.
This is Dr. Sharice Jones Branch, and this is your Women's History Moment. Born on March 24th, 1912 in Richmond, Virginia, Dorothy Irene Height moved to Pennsylvania at the age of 4. Always a good student, Height won a scholarship which she used to attend New York University. She earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Education and a Master's in Educational Psychology from the university. Height's first job was a caseworker in New York City in the New York City Welfare Department. In 1937, she met Mary McLeod Bethune, who became her mentor. In 1939, Height became president of the National Council of Negro Women, a post she would hold until 1998. She was also the national president of Delta Sigma Theta from 1946 to 1957. As president of the NCNW, Height helped organize the March on Washington in 1963. In 1971, she, along with Gloria Steinem, Shirley Chisholm, and Betty Friedan, founded the National Women's Political Caucus. And in 1986, she organized the first Black Family Reunion celebration. In 1989, President Ronald Reagan awarded Height the Citizens Medal Award for Distinguished Service. President George Bush presented her with the Congressional Gold Medal and the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2000. Dorothy Irene Height died on April 20th, 2010.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
All right, welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. And I'm going to let Dr. McGregor have these last moments. I want her to finish her story. We were talking about girls in the STEM field and them being motivated and having the encouragement they need to excel in the various areas. So I want her to finish her story.
Well, as I was saying, young girls have a lot going on in terms of changes in their bodies and dealing with peers at school, and maybe because of all of the distractions that they have going on internally, that they're having difficulty focusing externally on what's going on in the classroom.
Okay.
Now that's just a hypothesis on my behalf, okay. So I don't necessarily know that at a fact, but I do know that getting women and men at an early age actively engaged in the process and not passively simply putting information out there for them, but getting them engaged is the key to getting them to realize that this is something fun, and more importantly, that it's something that they can do.
Yes. And what I would like to see is more encouragement of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Mm-hmm. Even though someone, and not just for the STEM, but for any profession across the board. Just because you come from, say, a low-income, impoverished area, a rural area, where your parents or grandparents only have, say, a elementary or high school education. I grew up in a family where my aunt who raised me, she only went to 8th grade, because at that time they lived in a farming community, and she had multiple brothers and sisters, and so she was one of the oldest, so she had to help raise the younger one. So that's what we saw growing up. And so education was encouraged, but it wasn't pushed in, as much as it could have been. But I decided within myself I wanted to excel. My biological father, he was constantly studying something, getting some certification in something, so he helped to motivate me to want to excel beyond high school. And I would love to see more young individuals get that same motivation and encouragement from their peers and their counselor, whoever they interact with on a daily basis. Even if they can't get it from their parents can't give them something that they don't have themselves.
True. And I also think, though, that there is a role for non-parental but people who tend to be major figures in those lives of young people, that we can encourage them and we can support them and suggest to them that they can be more.
Yes.
Sometimes all it takes is for someone to give you a phrase, "I believe in you."
Okay.
And that's all it takes to encourage someone, because it's interesting how many people have never had someone tell them, "I believe in you." And sometimes that's the only thing that it takes to get people to go, "Whoa," and to get them to believe in themselves.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for that. In the last minute, do you have any final, we still have a few more minutes. Well, do you have some advice that you would give to someone that's considering, I think we may be gone, someone that's considering going into this field? What advice would you give them?
As I said earlier, to remind them that this is a science-based field.
Okay.
So there's a lot of scientific kinds of aspects to it. You've got to do the math. There's just no way around it. I actually have students come to me and go, "Do I have to take statistics?" And I teach statistics. So, "Do I have to take it?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. Yes, you do need to take this." But, to let people know that that is the foundation of our discipline. And if they want to move on in the discipline to do counseling or to do anything else, they will need to get a graduate degree.
Okay.
So.
Alrighty, so, and well, I know we've kind of gone all around around the world with this topic. What are some other things? I just want people to get to know you. This is Women's History Month, and so I invited Dr. McGregor and some others. I'm just still waiting on some callbacks, but invited others to come and share their experience being a woman in this field, a woman at Arkansas State University. What are some challenges you may have had to overcome, one being a woman and a minority?
Okay. I think that mine is probably a little different because I had a different trajectory than a lot of other people.
Okay. Let's have some time.
I have been a single parent for a long time.
Okay.
I actually was a single parent when I was in college.
Okay.
And then after I had my daughter, went back to college and then also completed a master's degree. Took a break, got married, then had my son, worked for a few years, and then went back and did a PhD.
Okay.
So I was probably, I've been a single parent there longer than I have been a co-parent.
Okay.
Their father is deceased.
Okay.
So I think the biggest challenge for me was juggling all of the things that come along with being a professional and with being a mother.
Okay.
And my kids are my top priority. They always have been. I mean, they're adults now, but they're still my top priority.
Okay.
And when I moved here, I think my son was actually in 6th grade. So I became a department chair, and I had a 6th grader, and I had one who was in college.
Oh, wow.
And it takes a lot of patience.
Okay.
It takes a lot of prayer. It takes a really good support system also, and I have had a phenomenal support system while I've been here in Jonesboro.
Oh, wow.
So I also want to remind people that, you may not realize how much the small things that you do affect someone else's life. So don't hesitate to do a small thing, even if it's just sending them a card or sending them an email telling them, hey, I'm thinking about you, because you don't know if they needed that little bit of encouragement at that moment. So, if you are a part of someone's support system, try to be an active part of it and a phenomenal part of it. And that's what has helped me be able to sort of do the things that I have done over the years, not just in Jonesboro, but throughout my life.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. McGregor. And I hope this won't be the last time we see you here.
I don't think it will be. Something tells me that it won't.
No, ma'am. We're going to have you come back and talk about some more in-depth psychology topics. So, thank you all for tuning in to Community Conversations. I've been your host today, Kobila Hart. I hope everyone has a very warm and blessed day.
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues.